Welcome back to Upshift Creek, the world's greatest and most hilarious Formula One podcast with me, Ollie Pettigrew. We've also got Ryan Sandler and Nick Calderon. Guys, welcome back to the show.
Vroom, vroom, bitches. Let's go.
Yes, I am so pumped to be here.
Yeah.
Was there actually a race this weekend? Full
Oh,
disclosure, I missed. I wasn't able to see it, but I assume it was a very by the numbers, all rules applied,
Right.
standard, boring, just kind of normal race. Yeah,
100%. I mean, if you saw the result, you saw Max Verstappen right up there winning the race, no problem. No, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to part one of the 12-hour podcast we'll be doing on the Australian Grand Prix because, holy cow, I mean, I watched it live, Texas time, guys. I was up till 3:40 a.m. still just going, what is happening?
Right. And I was out camping and I'm watching it on an iPad. I had service where I was. So I'm watching it and the iPad's going dead because it was going on forever. I had to stop and charge the iPad before I could finish watching.
Yeah. Same thing. I was watching it on a laptop and it, again, went so long, it started dying, it died. I rolled over quickly, got my phone out and I watched the last 3 laps like this. It was just amazing. I mean, how would you boil down that race if you had to in as few words as possible?
Well, I'm not allowed to swear, so I can't really get into that. Just absolute pure bedlam and chaos and mayhem.
Covered all bases of the F1 what the hell do we do now rule book.
I mean, let's just try and break it down really quickly for those that didn't watch the race. You had a Red Bull at the front, Max Verstappen. We had a Red Bull at the back with Perez. It all kicked off at the beginning. Really quickly, we saw Ferrari's luck. It paid off immediately. Charles Leclerc on the third corner immediately beats himself. He's out. Then we ended up with Albon crashing. We had safety cars. We had 3 red flags. We had 2 separate 20-minute pauses where the FIA tried to figure out what the heck they were supposed to do next. And then we finished in a really peculiar way.
Yeah, the ending was bizarre. And I'm like, I kept thinking, why are we doing this? And then I think it was Karun Chandok who said, we have to do this because what if another car breaks down? What if somebody overheats and just, or a flat tire? You have to do what seemed like a parade lap just to finish the race.
Right, but bearing that in mind, one thing that happened is the rules were followed because we've all been complaining for 2 seasons when they weren't. And after that procession lap and the race finishes, Hülkenberg actually did break down while on track. So honestly, I was sitting there. Honestly, I was sacrificing everything I could for the hope that Max Verstappen's Red Bull would just explode while driving at 30 kilometers an hour. But no.
Well, then he did spin out, but barely just, and was still 8 seconds in front of Hamilton.
And then jokes about it. He goes, it looked like the grass was a little too long, so I figured I would help them out and trim it. I'm like, oh, come on.
What wasn't funny was Carlos Sainz getting his 5-second penalty at the end. I mean, good grief. I thought that was an April Fool's joke at first. I really, really did.
I did enjoy that moment, actually, because, of course, when we get to situations like this, we all have to go to the #1 place for serious Formula One news. Formula Dank on Reddit, the greatest place. The memes have been salty all week, all weekend. I love it. You see this one here? Because as soon as the punishment came down, it was just no. This is unacceptable. They must wait until they have heard from him. Like, what are you going to say, Sainz? Make them an offer they can't refuse?
Well, there was precedent set by Aston Martin last week when they brought a case file of evidence that went in their favor. But this was a little bit of a different story for Sainz. I guess he was just hoping anything to save those 5 seconds. But
brutal.
Gosh, Ferrari to come out of that with no points.
I'm impressed that Alonso's car didn't just smash. He was still able to finish the race. And
I know that was a pretty good tag. I love that we've got ahead so far that we're already talking about the end of the race. But if we're going to talk about let's do it, because if we're going to talk about that, you guys are talking about points. One of my favorite things that's happening right now is Formula 1.75. Which is the season if Red Bull didn't exist. So kind of bring up the stats here. You can see Alonso's in first with 68 points, Hamilton in second with 55, Sainz in third, pretty impressive, with George Russell coming up fourth. It's going to be an interesting season of Formula 1.75 for sure.
Somehow more interesting than I wish I would have known that at the beginning. That's incredible.
So I'll tell you what.
it was a fun race to watch. It really, I mean, we had so much to sink our teeth into after the first 2 races this season. It started off like we were just going to be like, ho hum, ho, you know, there goes Max again off to the top step of the podium. But we got what we've all been wanting and asking for. We got crashes, we got red flags, we got controversy, as you Brits like to say. We got, I mean, I was well and thoroughly entertained, as Rick DeBrule said last week on our previous episode. We want entertainment, and we got it.
Well, look, quick counterpoint, because that's good rewind, because yeah, it was very interesting at the beginning, super boring for about 70 laps, or 70% of it, because, oh, there goes, you know, bye, Max. And then it got crazy interesting, where 95% of the interesting stuff happened in the last 5 laps. So let's back it up. Race starts, Leclerc goes off, and where it all starts getting interesting was, oh, how many laps were we in? About 6 laps or something like that, 10 laps, but suddenly Albon just stacks it. You know, he loses the back end, goes off. Big shunt, but he's okay. And that's where stuff got a bit interesting, because suddenly safety car comes out, and what happens? Russell ducks in from first place to put on the fresh boots. Sainz responds to that. Everyone's like, that's a great idea. What a brilliant idea. Wait a minute, it's a red flag? Oh, I'm sorry, George.
Yes, that was a real weird decision. I mean,
it was.
I get, did you guys hear why? Did they just not know how much debris was on the track when they first threw the yellow?
They didn't have enough cameras, Nick.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Not enough cameras. They still haven't subscribed to Sky Q, Sky Glass.
Just smash the red button, guys. Come on. But no, I think the reason they were giving was the gravel. And I can see that. I mean, a lot of gravel was thrown up. And yes, it's a right-left, and they are doing it at speed. So if you were to hit that gravel at a time when you needed the grip, you could absolutely go into the wall. But it was kind of how it went. Safety car, red flag. And that's what ended up taking, you know, Russell went from 1st to 7th. Sainz went down to 11th. You know, it really cost those guys dear.
So
if you're wondering why
it's... Sorry, Ryan. Do you blame the FIA for the delay in the decision? Do the drivers and the teams need to know immediately? Can those decisions even be made that quickly as these cars are flying around the track at 140 miles per hour? You know, what do you do? Is it just the luck? That's just the luck of Formula One.
You're not wrong in bringing that up, because there are certain things that have to be sort of borne in mind. Because let's also talk about how it comes down, the red flag comes down, everyone's slowing down, and suddenly they return to the crash site. Half the midfield has slowed down and stopped. You've got an AlphaTauri having us go to the side and go across the sand. We almost ended up with a second pileup. So there seems to have been some sort of miscommunication between FIA, the teams, and the drivers, because when they cut back, it's like watching a bunch of kids playing the video game.
Yeah, that's. I said to my friend, I was like, "This looks like every F123 lobby on PlayStation,
just with less racism."
Chaos. Yeah. Well,
yeah, it was bad luck for George for sure. But you know, what do you do? But you know what? Before we breeze past that incident with Albon, hello, was that a Williams looking kind of racy? Hello?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It was pretty good top speed. He crashed from 6th place or something like that, I believe. He was having an incredible run. That's why everyone, I think, was most gutted about was like, what? That would have been such a great story, but all right, it's okay. Yeah. Logan Sargent will do fine.
He's learning. I'll give him that.
Oh, we haven't spoken about how for the brief moment, it was like Mercedes were a top team again. You know, opening lap there, Max got caught slipping, even though, have you seen the pictures in the video? Max came within maybe an actual atom of being out of his grid spot. He is so far forward. He's like a half a foot further forward than Lewis is in the background. It was that close to 3 races in a row where, are we going to do a 5-second penalty again? Are we going to do that again, guys? I don't know if we can do that. And it's Max Verstappen. But he got caught slipping. And we had Mercedes right at the beginning for a couple of laps.
Yeah. That was George had a great start, didn't he? And that was exciting to see them. Hey, you know, so Mercedes didn't get the result they were looking for. Unfortunate. But there again, you've got progress. McLaren, we'll talk about them in a minute, but you're seeing progress already in the 3rd race. People are, you know, rapidly, as quickly as they can, responding to these super fast Red Bulls. Maybe it will be a contest for the championship this season.
I hate to be that guy, Nick, but when they finally get released after that sort of the red flag, it takes all of no time before they get on the straight. That Red Bull opens the DRS, and it's like an entirely different. He just cruises around the outside of Lewis Hamilton, and he's 10 seconds up the road, and then he's looking after his tires. Everyone's like, well, why didn't he keep going? Because he didn't need to. He's 10 seconds ahead. He's cutting the grass. He's just driving around. He's probably texting his girlfriend while he's driving with one hand. You know what I mean?
I don't care. I'm glad Red Bull's doing what they're doing. I'm a fan. And let's not forget, how many races did we have years ago with Michael Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton doing the same darn thing? So,
I agree. 100%. You can't take it away from them. They absolutely deserve what they're getting. Though, good on Red Bull for deliberately making Perez screw up during qualifying so he could start from the back and give us a very entertaining race of him just cutting through. Getting some really great overtaking moves actually from Perez, like on the outside. It was through Piastri and stuff like that. Thank you very much, Perez. That was very entertaining.
I think I just got a text message from FIA. There's been another red flag.
I was amazed because honestly, after the race, there was that appeal from Haas. We will get back to this controversy later, but I was like, are we going to get another change now, 2 hours later? Hopefully not. I was feeling bad for Russell, who definitely was feeling very racy. You know, he's eager. He wants it. He wants it bad. He feels like he's quicker than Lewis. And then, like, just as I'm about to, my eyes are crossing, I'm about to fall asleep. Suddenly, his Mercedes has an afterburner, but it makes it go slower.
Yeah, it turns into the Batmobile.
The Batmobile. Holy blown engine, Batman!
I have a very loud piece of landscaping equipment right outside my garage here. So if you hear anything, it is not George's failed Mercedes.
It's the Hitachi wand.
The best was, though, when they cut to him, like, after the 6th or 7th red flag, I don't remember anymore, where it's just him standing casually posing next to the Red Bull, looking at it like,
oh, hang on a second. I actually have this picture. Let's share this for those that are watching.
It's like a Tommy Hilfiger ad.
On YouTube. There he is. Everyone's like, the worst undercover spy ever. He's like, oh, no, they'll never know. Is he secretly taking off a wheel nut while he's doing that?
George is kicking back like, I'm not nothing to see here. Just me. With his dark shades to pretend that he's not actually staring through the Red Bull.
No one will know it's him. He's wearing a shirt.
And he's not standing like this.
He's the wings.
Dude, those have been so good. Those are good. Still popping up of ways to creatively use George Russell's pose from the intro. So at that point, all right, fine. Things pretty much just settled down for an hour. Max goes off. Everyone's like, Max is off. And he's just weaving down the start-finish side. Like, he's just cleaning the grass off his tires. Like, it's all good, guys. We still have 7 seconds in hand. It's fine.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean,
for a second, I was excited.
Just seeing that gap. I mean, the most entertaining thing was watching the gap between him and Hamilton get ever so bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Every lap. We did have some fun, though. There was Norris and Hulkenberg. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about Haas and McLaren both having a pretty darn good race, apart from K-Mag. It didn't go great with him, but we'll get back to that. But it was Norris and Hulkenberg were really dueling it out in the sort of like 7th, 8th, 9th position. We got some really good racing, pushed Hulkenberg off at one point. It was just nice to see the McLarens looking like McLarens again, and the Haas is getting a little bit racy.
Yeah, I was super excited to see Nico up there. I'm a little hurt. I'm glad Nico's doing well, but I'm a K-Mag fan too. It's shocking to me that Nico could be out of an F1 seat for how long was he out?
A couple of years, I think. Yeah. Well, he did super subbing. He turned up every now and again like a guest star in a sitcom and go, hey, remember me? I'm still here.
Yeah, but Sud somehow can jump into a not so speedy Haas and make that car perform. Whereas K-Mag has been around with that team for a while, and he's getting outperformed by Nico Hulkenberg. I'm glad to see the Haas is doing better, but wow, K-Mag, what's up?
Yeah, he hasn't had quite the fire he had last season, did he? But then again, I'd say that's what Nico's got. Very often we've seen this. You know, we've had Alonso go away and come back and stuff like that. Is it these guys, they leave F1, and then they realize, oh man, F1's cool. What was I thinking? That I was going to go and do the Dakar Rally? Who cares about the Le Mans? I want to race F1. It's cool.
No, they're just miserable, stuck in traffic on their whatever the hell they're doing. Like,
just on the M25.
Yeah.
Remember when I was racing at Spa?
But how does McLaren make such advances in the span of 2-3 races? Like they were looking like tractors, and now
they found the sandbags that they left in from testing. Guys, we were supposed to take this out? I have no idea. Like they looked good though, didn't they?
No.
They looked a lot better. Which
yes, perspective wise,
right?
Yeah, because they were absolute trash. Like we were describing them as traffic cones 2 races ago,
right?
So they looked
you
better.
are not wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like we ended up, was it Norris ended up 6th, but Piastri, all right, Piastri, who has been having a rubbish time, he's at his home race. He puts points on the board, and everyone's like, "This is amazing." Though, again, Formula Dank does bring the spicy memes. In this particular case, it's that classic Simpsons meme where it's first points, but it's also Leclerc doesn't finish, Russell doesn't finish, Gasly doesn't finish, Ocon doesn't finish, Albon doesn't finish, and Sainz gets a 5-second penalty. But points are points, baby.
That's right. They had a little bit of help, is what you're saying.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
He just needs that to happen every single race from now on, and he'll be looking pretty good.
And he'll be fine. But no, I mean, credit where credit's due. He did do actually okay. Let's look a little bit further into the race. Right, okay, it's about lap 54. At this point, I'm debating, shall I just go to sleep? You know, what could possibly happen? And then K-Mag makes it interesting. He gets a little bit too wide. Was it on turn 2? He taps that wall, but that wheel just disintegrates. The tire comes off, and that's when everyone went, "Oh no!"
Yeah. I thought Latifi was racing once again for a moment. I was like,
yeah, I know.
I thought he was going to get on the radio and say, "I think I have a puncture."
Yeah, I think the FIA got on and said, "I think you're about to get a puncture."
Well, speaking of puncture, didn't a fan get hit by some of that debris? Had a little bit of a minor injury.
Well, I thought that was from an F2 race, but the fans did get involved a little bit later. But let's keep on K-Mag for a second, because this I found quite interesting. All right, there's the crash. Then they red flag it. And that means that they're going to be starting off with like 2 full laps to decide. Now, this is what they were supposed to do, everyone argues, in Abu Dhabi 2021. What did they do? They basically red flagged it. They let everyone put the boots on, and they let everyone race to the finish, as opposed to letting people that were in the best position pit put fresh boots on. And then you ended up with that Verstappen-Hamilton controversy where it wasn't even. In this case, they took all the cars that were left and went, "All right, guys, are you ready for the shortest sprint race in Formula One history? Go!"
Yeah. Okay, so that's what the rules say. And I'm going to argue, is that a great idea anyway? Because look what happened. Everybody had brand new tires, and everybody just went balls out to the first few turns and stacked it. So now you have a super dangerous situation where everybody thinks they're going to win the race in the last lap, and you wind up with carnage and mayhem and bedlam. Is that what to me, that was a bit...
Yes. That is what we want. Because I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but I think Formula One may have just learnt a lesson from NASCAR. The way that if something happens on NASCAR on the last lap, they go, "All right," and they do this thing called green, white, checkered. I think, do they still do this? But basically means you got to do 1 lap under green, then you get 1 lap under white, and then you get to the checkered flag. So in this case, I mean, let's try and break it down, because that second red flag went nuts. We got Sainz spins Alonso on the first corner. I mean, he goes in way too deep with Gasly. Perez is going across the desert, like Rommel in World War II. You've got then the Alpines into each other. Gasly kind of rejoins. There's Ocon. They sort of detonate all over the track. And then you also have Stroll, 1 corner or 2 corners after that, also beating himself. Red flag comes down, and everyone busts out the rule book again and goes,
"What just happened? What do we do now?" You knew there was going to be chaos. You knew it. Yeah. And I guess that's exciting. It's very expensive. Just ask the Alpine team.
Yeah. But speaking of, again, let's go back to Formula Dank. I don't know if you guys have been watching the news, but the French are on strike. And so here we go. France on strike 2023. You've got the 2 cars parked on the sides in pieces. They're like, "Oh, we are not racing. We surrender." That one was tough. I don't know if you guys saw actually, because I've started following all of the teams and stuff on social media, and Alpine posted a video this morning, and it was Ocon and Gasly on a plane, and they're sitting right next to each other, and like we know that these guys used to be friends, are not friends anymore. Actually, really don't like each other that much. Ooh. And they both go, oh, tough race, and we can do better. And in my head, behind the camera, are just all of the PR team with guns, just pointing right at just say it was okay, move forward, and we'll get past this, all right?
You are French compatriots, you will be friends.
It's just, because that was, until then, Alpine was having a good race.
They were great.
They were looking good. Mm-hmm. Right, but of course, all right, so we got, in that situation, Carlos has spun the only other Spaniard on track, and we're all angry about this. But something that people have been bringing up, Karen Chandok, you were saying as well, they've been talking about on Twitter is, while we're all confused with that kerfuffle and all confused about what's going to happen on the race, Logan Sargent has done the same thing. He's gone right into the back of Nick De Vries, I believe. De Vries then gets all shook up. He's the one that gets Gasly getting a little bit all over the place, and I think ends up causing the Alpine crash. So then I'm like, well, we just watched Carlos do it. He picks up 5 seconds. Logan Sargent, he does it at the back, but aren't we going to apply the rules in the same way to everybody? Surely,
I totally missed that. Maybe that's where my iPad went dead. I don't know. I completely missed that. I didn't.
So, right, okay, if you're listening to this right now, the guys, you look it up, but like on that restart, Sargent, he's beaming in from the back. He just goes way too deep, locks up, goes right into the back of De Vries, I believe, is the car he goes into. It's a huge shunt, and it takes these guys out of the race. It ends up with 4 cars out of the race. And everyone, I think, was just too confused about what are we supposed to be doing? Because then, this, I think, the FIA, going to give them credit, could have done a bit quicker, but going to give them credit, they then used the precedent from Silverstone 2022. Remember when Zhou Guanyu had a massive crash. Remember that crash? And he goes off and he gets stacked. And they said, all right, well, we hadn't managed to get through one sector. So while we know where everybody was with GPS, we weren't able to categorize everybody in place. So that's why suddenly you've got you've got Alonso. I got Alonso. You've got they're basically wheeling his car from the back through the pits. It's almost, you can see, because the great part was Alonso was helping them move the tires. I just feel like, while Carlos is inside his car going, no, they must listen to me. And you can kind of see Alonso go past with the tires going, yeah, bitch.
Again, a miracle his car wasn't just destroyed spinning out from that, and he got to
also then. Great. So then the restart ends up being under safety car. I understand. No one can overtake. It's kind of boring. That's why I wish that they would kind of rip that off from NASCAR and go, all right, we need to have an extra lap.
Yeah,
so that we can have some racing.
I understand why the formation lap also counts as a full lap. So
because it's just distance, man. Yeah. It's just distance. That's F1. It is literally, that's how many laps there will be. They have that driver meeting. It's the rules. So even if it's under safety car, that counts.
Okay, so let's say you do take that rule from NASCAR, Ali, and do what you suggest, green, white, checkered. What about fuel situation? I mean, they dial these cars in to have, vapors at the end of the race. Are these cars going to run out of gas in that situation?
Well, doesn't that sound, to quote Rick de Brule, entertaining?
It does. It also sounds dangerous. You got a car running out of fuel on the track. That's dangerous. So I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know if I was satisfied by the end of that race. It seemed kind of weird to end the way it did. We got results. We saw Hamilton in second place. That was kind of cool to see Mercedes, back with a car that could compete. We got some good dicey racing, but I was left with a little uneasiness at the end.
Yeah. Well, actually, let's talk about uneasiness. Let's talk about danger, and let's talk about running out on track. Because as the race finishes after safety car, there are still cars on track. There's heavy equipment out there. There are cars driving, and the Aussies managed to break through the fence and are running on track. While there are still cars around, there are still things being moved. And it's like, it's every race so far this season, there's something. And I don't want, you can't just blanket blame the FIA. it's Australia, and it's
you
the stewards.
Blame the Australians. That's the most Australian thing to have happen.
Oh, let's go, mate! They got to get on the track. It's going to be amazing. Piastri got 8. He was 8. Look, Danny Rick's over there. I saw him. He's dressed in Ribble. But yeah, that bit. I mean, things like that though. That's dangerous. It is. Yeah. It's straight up like you want to talk safety, and I think the biggest jumps that F1 has made in my decades of watching is the safety. Things that we've seen with the halo and everything else, but just the idea of people on track with moving vehicles, disaster waiting to happen. I'm glad.
Heard them talking about it. I never actually saw it. Did they ever take a shot?
Yeah. Well, there's footage. You can find it on the Formula One Reddit. You can find it on Formula Dank. But there's a bit. I think it's the same area where, that same area where I think where Albon went off, or one of them. Or maybe it's where Stroll went off. But they've got 3 heavy equipment like JCBs, and they've got a car that's on thing, right? And it's crowd streaming around them as they're moving. You've also seen footage of another part of the track where people have got sort of to the exit gate, where you usually have, the guys that are looking after it, the stewards or whatever, not the stewards, the volunteers. And the cars are going by at, it looks like 100 miles an hour. And they're just standing there and one guy's taking video. What if something goes wrong? What if something stacks? And it's like that, again, another mistake. That was pretty scary to watch.
Well, they'll look back on all that stuff, right, and make security changes for next year. I'm sure more fencing, more locks, more volunteers, more people.
A couple of crocs, just some crocodiles, security crocodiles.
I went to the Australian Grand Prix, and all I got was this piece of shrapnel in my chest.
Fortunately, nuts. All right, let's get back to what we were joking about right at the beginning. Is that So the red flag comes down, and Sainz gets that 5 seconds, and Sainz was sitting. Was he sitting third at that point? I can't remember. But it's the most brutal 5-second penalty in history. Because it's not like you start the race and maybe you can open up a bit of space. It's Carlos Sainz can't overtake, can't go faster, can't go slower. And every other car in the entire lineup right behind Carlos going, hey man, hey man, hey man, hey man. And just go, whoop! And he ends up all the way like 12th or something like that.
Oh, that was brutal. Brutal.
But when you watch the replay though, because I was kind of, I like Carlos, and I was bummed that he got that penalty. Yeah. And I was bummed that he nudged Alonso, because we're all kind of behind Alonso these days. But there's my landscaper again. But when I watched that replay and I saw Carlos going deep, he was racing that line like there was no one else around him. You didn't see him attempt to turn a little harder right to perhaps give Alonso a little bit more room. So maybe I guess my point is I kind of understand why he got the penalty.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, he was racing Gasly. They kind of pushed each other. They both went real deep into that corner. And it's 100% he should have got the penalty, because he got away with it. Alonso ended up in last place, right? So, I mean, it's almost like, because I'm great that it ended up with Alonso in third. That's 3 in a row, which is amazing. But yeah, I think they did right by the rules. I think they did right by Sainz, or wrong by Sainz. But again, I think the big missing pieces were, why didn't they do the same to Sargent? I think they were just
but hold on a second. You just said Alonso got last place?
Well, he was bumped all the way back until they fixed it.
Right. Okay, all right, I see what you're saying. Okay,
that's why Carlos got his thing. Let's see. All right. There's actually, because there's a lot of interesting stories in this race that I was sitting here and I was I like this, that we do this. I like our upshift and our upshift creek awards, right? The who's done well, who did bad. And like my list, it's both of them. It's just a whole bunch. So I'm like, just to look at it, I've got on upshift and on upshift creek, the FIA, because in my opinion, they did great. They brought in the rules as they should have been done. Like I said, they like Abu Dhabi 2020, they learned. From Silverstone 2021, they learned. But the reason I've also got them Upship Creek is 20 minutes in each case before anyone knows what's going on. What if this had been to decide the championship, right? And we're all sitting there and pontificating and warning. They really need to get, I mean, I can't imagine the pressure of having like a billion people watching you, but for me, I'm like, they both hit on my list of like potentials.
Yeah. Well, the NFL makes these decisions every week when they're looking at replays, and they've got what, 3, 4, 5 refs. There's people in New York, there's people all over the place, but somehow they can make these decisions relatively quickly. I think the FIA needs to figure out a way to do it. You know, these cars, they need to speed up like their cars do, because it cannot take that long to make these decisions.
You are correct.
Too many cooks in the kitchen? Do they not know their own rules enough? Are there too many things that are happening that just have never happened before, and there's no rules to help identify it?
I need to bring up this point though, as many people did. All this drama is happening on the very same first race weekend that Michael Massey returned to the paddock just for fun. And everyone's like, he's cursed! Guys, every time he comes in, get the holy water. Massey, no, Massey!
He's doing his Mr. Burns excellent.
Excellent.
Good.
It's not as easy as you thought, is it?
Have you missed me?
But no, honestly, you bring up the NFL, Nick. I mean, one thing they have is like, let's cut to commercial. And it's like, we're making money while we're figuring this out. Whereas in Formula One, everyone's like going, well, let's look at the empty track. Nothing's happening. George Russell's got nice sunglasses on, hasn't he? Let's cut back to Carlos whining in his car.
I guess it is quite easy to just say, well, make a decision faster, when it's really, there's so much going on, so much to look at, and so many people to consider to keep happy. And you know, if you make a decision, are you going to cause strife somewhere else and set off a whole nother argument? Nobody's going to be happy. You can't make everybody happy.
Well, a lot of people were happy, and that's why my upshift list is so long. Next on my list is Aston Martin. 3rd and 4th. 3rd and 4th, Aston. I mean, granted, it's like because of the whole kerfuffle that happened on the last lap, but that's still official. 3rd and 4th, they are way up the table compared to other teams and other drivers.
Yeah, I'm hearing you, and I think it's obviously a great place to put that upshift award, because Aston Martin looked great at the beginning of the year. We all kind of thought, I don't know if we all, but I think I was thinking, this could be a bit of a fluke. You know, let's let things shake out a little bit. Are they really as fast as they appear to be right now? And 3 races in, the answer is yeah.
Yeah. But next on my list, though, I can't believe it, seeing as they have been the Upshift Creek champions of the last couple of weeks, McLaren. We got 6th and 8th. Yes, half the field crashed, but still 6th and 8th, and Piastri at his home race getting points. That's a pretty cool story.
I'm not sure if I'm ready to hand them a trophy for it yet.
Is it the Survivors Trophy?
Yeah.
Oh, everybody gets a trophy day.
But,
participation award.
Yeah. But I do feel like it was a good enough result for Zach Brown to just go, you know, take a bit of a breath. You know, the knife is off his throat for a moment, and just give McLaren just a little taste of, okay, we can do this.
We're not in last. Stories that got kind of overshadowed by all the drama. We've got Hulkenberg 7th for Haas. Love that. We got Perez 5th from last. So credit where credit's due. And then with Lewis on the podium, that is 17 straight years of getting on the podium in Formula One. Small round of applause for that one, because that's a pretty incredible statistic.
We all know Lewis is a legend, and it's great to see him continuing to keep a cool head and know that every race isn't going to turn out to be first place, but he's a champion. And
it's always great to see like what he's going to complain about the car next over the radio, though. That's my favorite.
That should be a game we should play. What's Lewis gonna? I still believe that anytime, I think it's the code with Lewis Hamilton is the opposite of whatever he says. Because he's like, oh, my tires are screwed, man, and then he goes 50 laps on them. I'm like, all right, that's the simple Mercedes code, just opposite of whatever I'm saying. All right, so I'm gonna let's do upshift.
Yeah.
So we'll each do it. I'm gonna go with Aston Martin, the team. I'm gonna give Aston Martin my upshift award, 3rd and 4th. Great result. I think they were looking strong, and I think they got a little bit lucky, like I said, because both of those cars got taken out on the last lap. But still, 3rd and 4th is 3rd and 4th.
I can't argue with you, Ollie.
Yeah.
I'm going to give my upshift award to the Alpine team for showing up, being quite racy, looking awfully good, looking like a team that could totally trounce McLaren. We know McLaren and Alpine have kind of been rivals, but I'm going to give my Upshift Creek award to Alpine. What the hell? Are you kidding me? You just tossed it out the window. The two of you. There's nothing worse than stacking it with your teammate at the end of the race and throwing all of those hard-earned points out the window. Oh my gosh! Come on.
For sure. All right, that's a good one. All right, Ryan, give us your Upshift award.
My Upshift, I got to give it to Sergio Perez for having an insane drive, going from what was it, 15th to 5th, and just getting 20th. Sorry, excuse me. And just that was unbelievable. That was like actually super fun to watch for the majority of the race, watching him just drive like a maniac. Love that.
See, all right, I like Nick's Upshift Creek because after FIA, next top of my list was Alpine. Because it was just you can't believe it. You're seeing these two cars, and you're just thinking, how much money have they just burned? Ferrari, it wasn't really their fault, but just as a team collectively, that was just so much bad luck. Charles off on basically the third corner, Carlos with just the most memeable complaints ever. I mean, they're honestly going to be turning up all season. I had George just because of his bad luck, and I had the fans who came out on track. But I think I'm with Nick. I'm going to join you in the Upshift Creek award goes to Alpine for just genuinely shooting themselves in the foot and just completely stacking it.
Yeah. And Ferrari is in a huge contention for Upshift Creek. The problem, though, is luck can change a lot in Formula One. And as a team, as you look at the season as a whole, you have to be prepared for those times when you're going to have bad luck. The problem is Ferrari has given themselves so much bad luck that there's no karma left in their tank for when things do just go wrong without it being their fault. They've had too many, coming off of last year, too many technical errors, too many strategy errors, too many breakdowns, driver errors, things like that just continue to take Ferrari out of contention and not be the team that they should be, which is a drag.
It's a good thing they have a fast car. That's really all they got going for them.
Well, if you think I'm done with the memes, you're wrong, because I've still got I got this one pretty accurately boils down Ferrari, where you've got like the classic meme of the guy just stepping on a rake, Leclerc getting no points, and it's Sainz doing all of these tricks. The first restart, multiple overtakes, second restart, 5-second penalty, and he ends up in exactly the same place as Charles, no points.
That's the same thing with extra steps.
Yeah. He may as well just gone off on the first lap and saved the fuel, I guess.
Unfortunate.
Yeah,
I'm such a fan of his too, and he's such a great driver, and it's such a bummer to see something like that happen.
The only other great little thing that I'm seeing on Formula Tank is the petition to the Dutch government to get a better national anthem, because we're going to have to listen to it so often that if you could get one that we can kind of understand, maybe sing along, maybe drop some bass on the back and just wicka, 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 and then, it'll make it a little bit of an easier pill to swallow every time Max wins.
One thing I will say, we had a bunch of people over our house watching this race, and one of our friends who had never seen a Formula One race ever before, this was his first one. And at the end, I'm like,
no,
oh, you've done it. You never have to watch another F1 race ever again, because it's not going to get crazier than this.
It was a great race. The next race is one of my absolute favorites on the calendar, Baku. When they first announced we're going to be racing in Azerbaijan, I was like, what? It has been reliably one of the greats. It's brilliant. It's fast in places. It's tight in other places. Because of the buildings and the trees, you get different track temperatures, so the tires don't necessarily work in different places. The only bad part is, guys, we've got 3 weekends with no race.
That is a drag. What are we planning for that, boys?
Absolutely no idea. We're going to have to get some guests on. I think we'll have to do a couple of special episodes in the meantime. But I tell you this much, I am positively frothy with anticipation for Baku. 3 weeks does give the teams some time if they need to come up with some solutions, if they need to get in the simulator, if they need to reset their drivers, get their brains right, or maybe even bring in upgrades. It could be an absolute banger.
Now, is there any limitation to what they can do, or I mean, I guess it's all like whatever this is in the budget.
It's the cost cap, unless of course you're Red Bull. That's too much.
You hide some new side pod designs in the catering.
And we got an extra $15 million of caviar this year. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Look, fellas, thanks. This was great. I couldn't wait to talk to you about this race. If you guys are listening or watching, please take the time to like, subscribe, tell your friends, rate us online. That all helps us get out there as well. Send us your stuff. You can find us at Upshift Creek. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Facebook. Nick, you've got your own Facebook. I've got my own as well. You can find us. And we really do love doing this podcast. So the longer we can do it, the better. We will try and find the time to put together some episodes in the meantime. Maybe we can watch an old race. Maybe we can get some other people on from the world of F1 to talk, because Rick honestly was fascinating. Yeah. Ryan, you need to meet Rick. That guy had stories coming out of his ears.
I watched the episode shortly after it went up, and it was so incredible to hear him. Just the wealth of knowledge he has is unbelievable.
I honestly, it was like trying to stop a boulder rolling downhill. I was like, look, we've been talking for 50 minutes, and I could probably go for 4 more hours. This is amazing.
Greg, I do like your idea of maybe getting together and watching an old race. That's a fun idea. Cool.
Yeah,
that'd be good for me. Cool. They're all old races to me. I don't know. They're all new races to me, I should say.
I'll find you some absolute classics. Fellas, thanks so much for this chat. Can't wait to see you next time on the show, but also I'm looking forward to Baku. Believe me.
Oh, yeah.
Throw that red flag on this podcast.